Well, folks, Halloween is upon us one more time, and this is probably going to be the last Halloween that I have long hair. So, we'll ham it up a little bit for the Halloween costume, and we'll talk about what's happening in this scariest shit-fucking situation we have in our political world. So, what do we have to go over here today? Mike Pence is finally out of the race. Huzzahs are in order for that motherfucking bullshit, and we'll be talking about what's happening with that pedantic pissant and everything else that's going on. We have a new speaker who is the same as the last speaker, so we'll be talking about what's happening with that, how we got there, and the demonization that's coming from the mainstream media. Another shooting happened in Maine this time. And just one more law, folks, one more law would have fixed it this time. So, hey, you know what? Let's just throw that one more law out there. Just one more time it's going to happen there. And Joe Biden tries to nationalize AI, in spite of the fact that he has no real intelligence of his own. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. And, as always, happy Halloween. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.
Sure, she never was to begin with.
So as much as I'd like to keep up the Razorfist character for 2 hours, and think it'd be fun to go into in costume, I don't think that there is enough alliteration out there for us to keep going, and enough insults as well for politics for this. And we do have some serious stuff that we've got to go over here today, but again, like I said in the cold open, I do think that given the fact that I'm probably going to cut my hair before Thanksgiving at this point, because it's long enough, I can get it out and get it donated, which is what I grew it for. But I wanted to throw this costume on one more time with real hair. I mean, I can always come back and do it with a wig at some point later on as well, but I can do it with real hair and, throw the aviators on and have some fun with this as well. And we've got a special outro music as well. I've got Into and DM Ryan already joining us over on the YouTube side, so thank you guys for that. Do keep in mind, and as I've always said, you can comment what it is that you see. This is not like the morning show where we were trying to get through and we had a time limit and a time crunch to go through and everything, and I had to make sure that I was off in a reasonable hour for work. If you guys want to say something here, I will check in with the live chat between articles as we go, but we do have a bunch of stuff to go over here today, so strap yourselves in, grab a drink, grab some friends, get some people in here, and we got the news to go over here today. As mentioned at the top of the show, we had the mass shooting in Maine that was exacerbated to a number of people and then quietly edited backwards after they caught the guy. And oddly enough, once again, he's dead. He died, and they can't question him. Isn't it so weird how that continues to happen over and over? And here's the weirdest part. He did it himself this time. So we'll be going over some of that, talking about some of the reaction to that and what it is that they were trying to do with that. Mike Pence is out, obviously, and a civilian aircraft once again enters the airspace above Rehoboth Beach. This keeps happening, you guys. I don't know why. I don't know who was flying these planes in to Rehoboth Beach or why we have to know about it. That's one of the biggest problems I have with this, is why it is that we have to know about this constantly. And we do. We hear about it all the time, so we'll be going over that and what that means and where we go with that. We have a speaker, Mike Johnson, who literally nobody had heard of, before this past week. And yet, we suddenly hear once again how we've always hated this person, and this person has always been evil and uniquely evil, and he's always been up on our radars, even though, again, most of the country had no idea who this motherfucker was. Pretty much until last Thursday. They just know that they've always hated him. But they do this all the fucking time, too, you guys, constantly. It's just like the Trump effect. They love that guy. As much as they try to say, oh, well, we always hated him, we always thought he was a goofball, this, that, and the next thing. Dude, they love that guy until he ran up for the president. And you see it over and over again. The AI order, which, again, is uniquely hilarious to me based on the fact that Biden doesn't have real intelligence. What the hell is he going to do with artificial intelligence? But we'll be going over some of that. Jamal Bowman got caught with his video. We've got the video of him pulling the fire alarm and what actually happened with that. And yeah, we've even got the foreign news, which has slowed off some, especially with the speakership fight. It slowed off some, but it's still going on. It's still something we do need to pay attention to. Plus, we've got things that I like and things that I hate, and the thing that I like today comes right here from my home state. So we will be talking about that and what happened with the Minocqua Brewery, which is known for brewing some very, very, very progressive beers. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So we're going to get started. No more finance at this point here, so we're going to get started. We're going to get right into it, and let's see what's happening here in the news today. And let's start, as mentioned before, with the unfortunate, the F's in the chat, because we've got to talk about the Maine massacre suspect, who's now dead and can never answer for what it is that he did. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing. See what you guys are saying in here as well. Midget B! Yes, God fucking speed, Midget B. Thanks for joining. Alright, let's get started. From the New York Post to start with, manhunt for Maine massacre suspect. I mean, there's so much alliteration there, you think this actually is a Razor Fist video, which I think is kind of funny in and of itself. Manhunt for Maine massacre suspect Robert Card sparks alert at Canadian border as search history of Biden conspiracy theories emerges. So, to catch you up on a lot of this, because a lot of the original articles of this have already been scrubbed off the internet. Wednesday, I believe this was. Let me double check on this one. The desperate manhunt has extended to Canada. So this past Wednesday, we got word of another mass shooting, this time in a bowling alley in Maine. And the usual suspects were out there already. We're already out here screaming for gun control. The shooter used an AR-10. So, of course, it's always the demonized black composite rifle. They never use anything else. Well, they do use other things. It's just those stories don't ever make the news. So do with that little bit of information what you will. And he went out and ran right away. Apparently this guy was special ops of some sort and was able to elude all the police and start running and theoretically headed towards Canada, according to this article here. But he's dead. You get it? He's dead. He'll never be able to be questioned for anything because he's dead. We can just bury the story under and talk about more gun control, but never have to think about his motives or ask him about his motives or anything else. But let's read here from the New York Post. The desperate manhunt for suspected Maine mass shooter Robert Card is extended to Canada, with authorities issuing an alert for the armed and dangerous trained marksman, and it was revealed his online search history contained conspiracy theories including President Biden. The Canada Border Services Agency said it issued an alert for officers along the U.S.-Canada border to ensure the safety and security of Canadians and protect Canada's borders against any threat of, attempted illegal entry. Yeah, but keep in mind that Canada actually has border security. This is not like the U.S.-Mexico border. It came 3 days after 18 people were killed and more than a dozen others injured in a Wednesday night shooting spree at multiple sites in Lewiston, Maine. The mayor of a border town in Canada also said he was aware of American authorities at the border checking people leaving the country and said Canadian police are doing the same as we speak, according to Global News. So this is before they found him, obviously, because, wow, This is our U.S. government. They're inefficient enough to keep looking for somebody after they found his corpse. We're going to make sure everybody knows. Keep your eyes and ears open for any strange activity, he told Global News. The Canadian alerts came as the U.S., more than 350 state and federal law enforcement officials continued the manhunt for Card, thought to be the gunman caught on surveillance video during the massacre of 18 people in 2 different locations in Lewiston, Maine, late Wednesday. The Coast Guard announced Thursday it dispatched a boat crew from Boothby Harbor and a wing plane from Cape Cod to assist in the search efforts. Card, a skilled outdoorsman and trained U.S. Army Reserve marksman, owns a 12-foot Sea-Doo jet ski registered in his name and had previously registered a 15-foot Bayliner boat, according to the documents obtained by CBS News. But after hours of searching, authorities found nothing out of the ordinary, Chief Petty Officer Ryan Smith, who was in charge of the Coast Guard's Boothby Harbor Station, told KTZed. So that's where we were about Friday night, looking into the border, looking into everything else. And I mean, even coming into this, going into the weekend, one of my first thoughts on this entire thing was, man, if they wanted this guy, they'd have him. And I continue to believe that as we go, too, by the way. If they wanted this guy, they would have had him. There are enough people out there. I mean, Maine is sparsely populated in this position, but there are enough people out there that they would just phalanx the hell out of this forest instead of just throwing an individual person on here. But I mean, putting a desperate person up on the run and giving him, again, the opportunity to either be caught armed and dangerous, where somebody had to make the decision, or do it himself. Oh my God. I have to wonder if that was by himself to the back of the head twice. We'll see if the autopsy report ever gets released for this, but yes, he is dead at this point. So we'll talk just a bit about that. We've got other ones here. Fearful Maine residents stay home amid massive search for the suspect. Police surround home in search of the suspect. We'll talk about that in just a bit. And his note to loved ones. But let's move over here to our friends over at NPR for just a moment. Suspect in the Maine mass shooting has been found dead, police say. This is from Joe Hernandez, Rachel Treisman, and Emily Olson, and Juliana Kim, who need your money because, remember, NPR is only 10% government funded, and the ad revenue does not do enough for them. So hit that donate button because they need our money, comrade, to tell you that Mr. Robert Card must have been an evil Trump-supporting Republican because he was gun-toting and cannot be anything else. And they cannot tell you this propaganda without your donation. So NPR, which is never printing reality, National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is that they have to say. The suspected perpetrator of this week's mass shooting in Maine has been found dead in an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, authorities announced on Friday. Robert Card, 40, who was the sole suspect in the fatal attack at a Lewiston bowling alley and bar on Wednesday that left 18 people dead and 13 others wounded. Which is funny because it was 22 dead and 60 wounded as of last Thursday. The announcement late Friday capped a 2-day manhunt that forced residents to shelter in place and business and government offices to temporarily close as state and federal law enforcement agencies secured several towns for the alleged killer. No, I'm not going to sign up for NPR's newsletter. Like many people, I'm breathing a sigh of relief tonight knowing that Robert Card is no longer a threat to anyone, Maine Governor Janet Mills said at a late-night press conference. I know that there are some people, many people, who share that sentiment, but I also know that his death may not bring solace to many. But now is a time to heal and completely forget about the families of the victims. Hey, he's dead. We don't have to worry about him anymore. Let's pass a bunch of new gun laws that wouldn't have prevented this in the first place, and make sure that more law-abiding citizens become criminals based on our agenda. Mills thanked first responders and said she informed President Biden and other federal elected officials that the suspect has been found dead. Lewiston is a special place. This isn't us, Mills added. It's a close-knit community of fine people. Did she say on both sides, or on many sides, for that matter? Many sides, very fine people. With a long history, a history of hard work and persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. Mike Soschuk, a commissioner for the state's Department of Public Safety, said Card's body was located in Lisbon Falls near the Androscoggin River. President Biden issued a statement following the news of Card's death, calling it a tragic 2 days for Lewiston and the entire community. Where was the gunshot wound? NPR. Hey man, numerous brave law enforcement officers have worked around the clock to find the suspect and prevent the loss of more innocent life, man. Joe, wake up. Well, risking their own. They're the best of us, man. Come on, man. Tonight we're grateful that Lewiston and surrounding communities are safe, man. After spending excruciating days hiding in their homes, man. Come on, man. The families of all 18 victims have been notified. The Office of Maine's Chief Medical Examiner said the youngest victim, Aaron Young, was 14, and the oldest, Robert E. Violette, was 76. So, again, mysteriously, can't answer any questions ever. Isn't that funny, by the way? Couple other notes on this one. Police, fearful Maine residents stay home. We got that one. Oh, this is the same article that was over here on KMSP5. I thought this was going to be something different. Because they're saying police surround her home in search of suspect. Must have changed it because he dead. But we do have one, and this is archived, so this is going to be what was on the text when I put this up. From Fox News, Maine shooting Robert Card's note to loved ones and final movements were revealed. I don't care about his final movements. I care about the final movements of the people who were around him when this happened. But hey, if you say that out loud on YouTube, you're a evil conspiracy theorist. Let's keep reading. The mass murderer in Maine wrote a note to a loved one with his phone's passcode and bank account before he was found dead about a mile away from his abandoned car. Really? The passcode that they can get into his phone and a bank account is the last thing that he thought to put out there? Is there a manifesto that we're missing? Let's see. 2 nights after, they found Card dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I don't know who that is. I'm getting a phone call from West Virginia, and I don't know why. His body and 2 guns were found inside one of the unlocked trailers, which are essentially long rectangular metal boxes packed with waste and other garbage, in the recycling center's overflow lot. The ATF agent said Card legally purchased all the recovered guns somewhat recently, which is really weird because the reports are out that he was involuntarily committed very recently before this, so I'd like to understand how he could have legally purchased firearms. Now, of course, if he had them before, we can have a question about that in red flag laws, given the fact that he was involuntarily committed, but I'm finding this funny, and what always makes me wonder about these things is they happen. The person was on the FBI's radar, and then it turns out that after the incident that put him on the FBI's radar, he's able to go back out and legally purchase firearms again. Isn't that weird? I had a person in my Discord not that long ago who I did have to remove. I hate doing that, but I did have to remove that person from my Discord. who was here to come back out and tell me, hey, we need to do something about... Okay, I guess I can't say a lot of that on YouTube, but the way that he was talking, and I can allude to maybe some of this here, but not say it outright, is that I was thinking to myself, man, if I just pretend to go along with this guy, hey, maybe I'll get a nice, shiny new Daniel Defense rifle that I can't afford with minimal to no background check. Not that I wouldn't pass a background check right now, although I probably am on the FBI's radar, because I'm very, very vocally anti-government, but I digress. We're not just talking about a small area. I'm talking a large industrial park, said Lisbon Police Chief Ryan McGee, who was one of the first officers on scene when they found Card's body. But the diligent owner of the facility sent another tip to law enforcement about these trailers in a lot across from Capitol Avenue, which is considered the recycling center's property, and prompted a law enforcement's third visit and the first to this lot, Scarier. So he left his guns in a trailer on private property that was theoretically probably locked, left a passcode to his phone and his bank account number, and just offed himself in the back of the head. Man, do I have questions about this one. But a lot of these questions we are never going to have answered. Fun one from here from the Associated Press. Police were alerted weeks ago about shooters' threats. From Bernard Condon and Jim Mustian. Police across Maine were alerted to last month to veiled threats by the U.S. Army reservists who would go out to carry one of the worst mass shootings in the state's history. One of the only mass shootings in the state history, by the way. One of a string of missed red flags that preceded the massacre. Missed red flags that they knew about, you say? Two local law enforcement chiefs told the Associated Press that a statewide awareness alert was sent in mid-September to go on the lookout for Card after the firearms instructor made threats against his base and fellow soldiers, which is usually a stupid idea. Because even though they're not allowed to carry on the base, there's stuff there, at least. But after stepped-up patrols of the base and a visit to Card's home, neither of which turned up any sign of him, they moved on. We added extra patrols. We did that for about 2 weeks. The guy never showed up, said Jack Clements, the police chief of Saco, home to the U.S. Army Reserve base where Card trained. Sagadahoc County Sheriff Joel Mary, whose jurisdiction includes Card's home in Bowdoin, said the Army Reserve tipped his department in September to the reservist threats, and the sheriff sent the awareness alert to every law enforcement agency in the state before... Wow, I'm talking like Joe Biden, man! After his deputy came back empty-handed from a welfare check to Card's home. We couldn't locate him, Mary said, adding that he couldn't recall if there was any follow-up because I don't have any reports in front of me. Weird! He was on law enforcement radar and was still able to legally purchase a firearm. Isn't that funny? Alright, let's talk some of the reactions here. We've got everybody's favorite reactionaries. The View. The single point of view, I should say. Let's listen to Joyless Behar.
Sarah didn't get a chance to weigh in on the topic of what happened in Maine and AR-15s.
Yeah, I would love to see an assault weapons ban. Like President Reagan, I don't believe they're a sport or hunting instrument. It's like shooting fish in a bucket, but that's my take.
But also, if you shoot with an AR-15, let's say you shoot a deer, you can't eat it. Because you basically demolish.
In addition to that, but the hunt is about an actual difficult process, not massacring bodies of any kind. But my point is, I'd love to see that.
Sarah didn't get a chance to weigh in on the topic of what happened in Maine and AR-15s.
Yeah, I would love to see an assault weapons ban. Like President Reagan, I don't believe they're a sport or hunting instrument. It's like shooting fish in a bucket, but that's my take.
But also, if you shoot with an AR-15, let's say you shoot a deer, you can't eat it. Because you basically demolish.
In addition to that, but the hunt is about...
I always love this take, and I mean, it's a waste of time to go back and explain this to these because these people are never going to eat meat that didn't die from a spike through the forehead on an assembly line. They're never going to do that. But number one, the dude wasn't using an AR-15, and he was using, the AR-10, which uses a round more commonly used by hunters, the 308 Win Mag, that I've been eating numerous deer that were slain by that particular bullet. So, but again, it's really a waste of time to tell these people this because no matter what, they're not going to believe it anyway. All right, let's grab some other ones here. David Hogg with the take of the fucking year. Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't Hogs. Hogs is the next one. So, this account, which is not parody, by the way, this is a real account. I thought this was parody at first. The Lewiston, Maine shooter used a .308 caliber AR-15 rifle. This is an even more powerful and deadly version of the .223 assault rifle used during recent mass shootings. The larger .308 cartridge has more gunpowder to fire a larger bullet, causing more damage. Well, yes, that's because it is intended to go further. A semi-auto battle rifle, which is not what was used in the Lewiston shooting, by the way, loaded with these .308 rounds, is illegal for hunting in Maine. No, it's not. For large game, grab your .308 Winchester bolt-action hunting rifle. The .308 has the power you need to drop a whitetail, pronghorn, and even black bears. Yeah, you can still use a semi-auto, by the way. Why is a rifle that's illegal for hunting animals, solely designed for killing people, sold without a background check to any paying customer in Maine? Any paying customer, you say? Does anybody want to go take a trip to Maine for completely unrelated purposes? Now, of course, we would get there and find that, yes, a background check would be required, and it wouldn't just go to any paying customer, because the firearms dealer in Maine would have to go back and call my brother-in-law, because he would have to get the rifle sent to him, to which I would come back home and fill out a background check. I mean, this thread is just full of lies. And of course, note that the far-right anti-government imagery on the shirt for this .308 semi-auto rifle advertisement. The anti-government imagery, if you happen to be the British government. And this is a real account. Like, again, I read through this thread initially, and I thought this was a parody. It's not. This is what this person actually believes. I'm actually, because I was commenting on a lot of his posts, I'm a little bit surprised that I have not been blocked by this account yet, but here we are. I don't have my Rumble chat up. I don't have any of my chat up right now. Dual Helix has joined us over here. Your Razor Fist, nice costume. Thank you. God fucking speed. He got the gun right before he was sent to the loony bin. I think his sister-in-law was a gaslighting bitch. Oof. Don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel, Dual Helix. Luke Wee is over here. I thought this was J. Edgar. Yes, this is still contemporary. Probably contributing factor to his off-the-railsness. I bet she called the superiors in the army, got him fired and put on a psych hold. They used 30-06 in the World Wars. Those can stop a truck. God, fucking speed. Yeah, we'll do some impromptu Razor Fist rant in the outro, but again, if in case Razor Fist does ever find this, don't worry, I'm not trying to appropriate the IP. This is a Halloween costume, as I said in the disclaimer at the beginning of the show. I'd love to interview you at some point, by the way. But come next Tuesday, I'll be back in a print t-shirt with my hair pulled back, if it's not cut by that point, and my regular glasses. Because nobody can do the Razor Rant like Razor Fist. David Hogg. We'll never end gun violence until white women in the suburbs stop voting for the Republicans who are endangering our schools and communities by flooding them with guns. David, let me ask you something here. Did you, a theoretically straight white male, I think the jury is actually still out on that one, but a theoretically straight white male, just tell women how to vote? Really? You? Not that you've really got the guns to back it up either. Have you seen this dude lately? Is he shrinking? I swear to God, I think that he's shrinking. Alright. That's all that I have for Robert Card and the shooting in Maine. Now let's get on to our political news of the day. Talk about what's happening in the political world. And I think our number one political news of the day comes to us from Fox News. Michael Pence suspends his 2024 presidential campaign. We're only going to read briefly over this, mostly because I'm going to spend most of the time that I would be reading this article gloating. But let's read a little bit of this here. Paul Steinhauser, Adam Shaw, Andrea Vacchiano reporting. Former Vice President, and never to be Vice President again, by the way, Mike Pence, on Saturday announced that he is suspending his 2024 Republican presidential campaign. You know what we say to that? I'll tell you what we say to that. You love to hear it. You love to see it. The worthless neocon that a lot of Trump supporters were against to begin with no longer has a place in any of this. Electroshock Mike is gone. Hey, maybe he can go in electroshock conversion therapy himself into being a decent human being, or at least a populist. And maybe he'll do better next time. He actually won't, but maybe. I'd just love to see him electrocute himself. That's probably going to get me a strike on YouTube. I came here to say it's become clear to me it's not my time. Well, it's not going to be your time, Pence. Pence said in a surprise announcement at the annual Republican Jewish Coalition Convention. A surprise announcement. The guy is continually polling at 1% to 2%. Actual race Bannon is polling better than Mike Pence. So after much prayer and deliberation, I have decided to suspend my campaign for president effective today. Bye-bye! So this actually does change a few things, interestingly, in the race. Especially with the third debate coming up. Now, I've talked about this numerous times before. With the debates coming up and what's happening in the debates. And the debates that have happened past, where people like Chris Christie and Ron DeSantis have done everything they can to try to go Trump and say, oh, you're a coward if you don't come out here. We all knew you're a coward if you don't come out here. And I've always said, consistently, from the beginning when we started watching the debates. His lawyers are probably telling him he can't go to the debates, especially now with actual gag orders against him and warnings about intimidating witnesses, especially in the January 6th case in D.C., because of the fact that Mike Pence is a witness in the January 6th case. So anything that he tries to do on the stage with Pence, arguing against Pence, if you look at it through the most biased lenses possible, will turn around and be construed as, oh, he's trying to intimidate Mike Pence. Oh my God, what do we do? How do we shut him down? How do we get rid of him? How do we put him in a jail cell? He's trying to intimidate Mike Pence. Now, I don't know if Chris Christie is a witness in this trial. The prosecution, if he's not a witness, the prosecution and Tanya Chutkan herself are probably getting daily letters from Christie himself, not his campaign, Christie himself. Please let me testify against Donald Trump. Please let me testify. Oh, I just want to get on the stand and tell you how much I hate Donald Trump. Oh my God. Like, I can see him scribbling a letter. In fact, I can see Chris Christie scribbling a letter. Dear Tanya, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. I left my cell, my home phone, and my pager at the bottom. I can see those letters coming from the office of Chris Christie. Because, again, he just wants to get up there and tell you how much he hates Donald Trump. But the reason that I went through all this spiel talking about the debates, without Pence on the stage, there is actually a chance that Trump could come back and join debate number 3. Because there's not a witness against him on the debate stage with him. Do I think he's going to? No, I actually don't. I don't think that is a thing that's going to happen in any of this. But now it's a possibility. Because one of the major legal repercussions of him being on the stage has been removed from the equation, so it be said. But we still have him up here with a bunch of lawyers, which, of all the things that the Donald is, a lawyer he is not. Coming out here trying to throw him into ideological traps that would get him in hot water with the judge in the case. So, if I was his lawyer, I would still tell him, no, don't go to the debate. These people are looking to put you into a trap. But with Pence off the stage, it's a possibility. I do think that was one of the key components of the reason that he wasn't going up on the stage to begin with. So, bye-bye, Mike Pence. Bye-bye. In Biden news, civilian aircraft enters restricted airspace near Biden's Delaware home. I had to check the date on this to make sure this was recent, because this is like the 5th time this has happened, and it's made national news. And I'm sure that there were drones and civilian aircraft that went into Mar-a-Lago's airspace all the time. And I'm sure that there were model planes that went into the White House. Well, and like Barack did not go to another home as much as the Donald and Joe Biden did, that I'm aware of. I know that he went on golf trips, but like when he was home, quote unquote, he was spending most of his time in the White House. In fact, I think that W did the same thing. I think he spent the majority of his time at the White House too, not having a second or third home out there. So, like, these last 2 presidencies are the first real times that I can think of where this was even an issue to begin with. But yeah, this is like the 5th time this has happened. Tara Suter reporting for The Hill. A civilian aircraft entered restricted airspace near Biden's Delaware home on Saturday, according to a spokesperson for the Secret Service. Shortly after 2 p.m. Saturday, a civilian aircraft violated restricted airspace north of Wilmington. Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said in a statement posted to X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. As a precaution, assets were scrambled to intercept the civilian aircraft, safely landed at a nearby airport. Now, what are we talking here? A drone? remote controlled. An Amazon delivery drone, maybe. A Piper Cub. A biplane. I know a lot of those fly out around there, especially around North Carolina. That's a little bit further south, but what kind of plane are we talking here? I mean, if it went to land at the airport, I presume that it was not some kid's 4-propeller drone. After I finish up here a little bit, I got to go check in with the live chat because you guys are being active again, which is good. I love the activity. There were no impacts to the protectees' movements as a result of this incident, and the agents from the U.S. Secret Service are investigating in coordination with the FAA, the statement continued. A fighter aircraft and helicopter were sent to escort the aircraft out of the restricted airspace after its aircraft's presence was first detected, according to a release shared by Guglielmi, which tells me, yeah, it was probably a civilian size, like a Piper Cub or something like that. I don't think it was small enough to be considered like a paraglider or an ultralight or something, or just an unmanned drone, like a kid playing around with something. But again, I mean, this keeps happening. And I don't ever recall, because I'm sure at some point over the White House, even though I know that it's fairly well known what the airspace restricted over the White House is, but over the Mar-a-Lago or over whatever golf course Barack Obama happened to be on, or wherever W happened to be, pretending to be stupid while he was masterminding the destruction of the world. I'm sure this has happened before, but they're being really, really, really public about this when this happens every time, and it makes me wonder why. Alright, let's check in over here. Let's start with the Rumble side. Cool Helix says, not even Greta Thunberg would give David Hogg the time of day. How dare you! Pence is a traitor. Screw him. Pence is at the top of my evil assholes list. Well, W's above him for me. I hate Ramaswamy almost as much. I don't think Ramaswamy's running for president. I think he's trying to have a captive MAGA crowd for whatever his next business venture is. I've always thought that about him. Ramaswamy wants to push this white right-wing males are crazy grift to get all the white free-thinking males thrown in the loony bin to get his big pharma donors. I don't know that he would go down that particular possibility, but it's a possibility. I just think he's trying to make a new business venture doing Trump merch, and he wants a captive audience for it. After they put everyone some of this medical stuff I know I can't say on YouTube. And Trump is just as bad. Mark my words, take a screenshot, I'm telling you the truth. This happens over W's place in Texas a couple times a year. Wasn't aware of that. But I'm pretty anti-Bush though too. Into also joining us over on the YouTube side with a big smile on that one. Yeah, I had a big smile like that when Pence dropped out of the race too. Alright, what else do we have going on here? Wow, I don't know why everything just reloaded like that, but... Alright, so this is an interesting story, definitely. Will Rollins of California has the comments off, number one. Only accounts that Will Rollins follows or mention can reply. But has made a campaign advertisement for California 41, which while we're listening to this video, I'll go see where California 41 is and see what kind of chances this asshole has. But he is running for Congress as somebody who helped to prosecute January 6 people. Don't take my word for it. Let's listen to it from the horse's mouth himself. And he is a horse. Let me tell you.
I want to tell you a story. Last March, the U.S. Navy sent a ship called the Mercy here to the port of Los Angeles. The Mercy is a massive floating hospital, and it was here to help if our ICUs became overrun with COVID cases. One afternoon, not far from here, a train engineer allegedly pushed the throttle down on his train so he could derail it toward the Mercy. Fortunately, he came to a stop just short of the hospital ship. As a national security and terrorism prosecutor, I worked on that case. See, I wanted to work in counterterrorism because of 9/11. But today, some of our biggest threats are right here at home. And it's not happening by chance. The train engineer told investigators that he thought the Mercy was part of a government conspiracy and that he had to stop it. Sadly, his beliefs are not unique. We've all watched as people have become angrier and more violent as they've heard similar conspiracy theories and QAnon lies ripple across social media and then echo on Fox News. I saw the same thing when I helped prosecute people who attacked the US Capitol on January 6th. This is a systemic problem. Extremists, big tech, and media outlets profiting by spreading division based on lies, even as they erode our democracy and make it easier for adversaries like China and Russia to exploit us. But we can stop it. We can update our regulations to break down propaganda networks. We can require big tech, cable news, and talk radio to provide transparency in their advertising. And we can create a modern fairness doctrine so we can actually learn about both sides of an issue. That is the only way Americans can start to agree on basic facts again. And there is a lot of work that we need to do together, like reforming our criminal justice system.
Some facts are more basic than others.
Improving access to healthcare, and growing our economy while also protecting the planet. So let's kick out extreme politicians like Ken Calvert who spread the big lies, and elect a new generation of leaders willing to save our democracy. At the end of the day, I think most Americans are like me and my partner Paolo. We want to spend Thanksgiving arguing about who gets the last of the stuffing, not whether the earth is flat. Because as I tell my uncles every year, the earth is round and that stuffing is mine.
Oh my God! Just so you know, that was actually the first time I watched that video. I intended to watch that before Contemporary, but... oh my God. I might have died a little bit inside just to cringe. Let's talk about this. Number one, this person's policy position is, I tried to put citizens, political enemies in jail. Now, given the fact that he is running in an actual Republican district, or what passes for a Republican district in California, I actually don't know that that'll fly. I don't actually think that he can make it off of this, and I think that he's going to get BTFO'd in a hurry. But I'd like to see some documentation or a news story on this train derailment here, because pretty sure that would have been a headline, because that would have been one of those kinds of things that would have driven the COVID narrative. So forgive me if I don't believe that this is something that actually happened, or if this is somebody that got railroaded into making a confession because it can look good for shit like this. Bottom line is, I don't believe what this jackass is saying. And of course, he had to go in and throw the "me and my partner, look at me, I'm gay" card. I do. I think I died a little bit of cringe right there. I think I did. See, train driver. This guy's obviously popped up by Pharma 2. Go look up his donors. I bet you $1 did happen. Okay, I missed that somehow then. Oh, because they were keeping a lid on any dissent. The Mogwai has joined us. Stuffing his partner, says the Mogwai. There's I'm gay cards. Does Silent Caster know about this? I don't know. Invite him in here. We'll see if we can find out about that. I don't think it works, though, if you're independent or anti-government, or Republican for that matter. I don't think they work for that. I think they only work if you're a progressive Democrat. Thank you, Mogwai. Let's talk about Mike Johnson, who is simultaneously the most evil person in the world that the entire Democrat Party was trying to tell you was the most evil person in the world, and yet you simultaneously had never heard of before this past Thursday. From NPC News, Republicans nominate Mike Johnson for House Speaker in latest attempt to break GOP impasse. And in the next article, Mike Johnson's elected 56th Speaker of the House, ending weeks of GOP chaos. I just want to read a little bit of preview on what NPC News was saying about him as the nomination came up. By the way, this guy was supposedly the architect of the Stop the Steal rally and the insurrection that would have ended democracy forever. And yet again, you never heard of this guy until last Thursday. Simultaneously, Scott Wong, Sahil Kapoor, Rebecca Kaplan, and Kyle Stewart reporting for NPC News. Mike Johnson, a relatively little-known Louisiana Republican and low-ranking member of the GOP leadership team, became the party's latest nominee for House Speaker Tuesday, after 3 other hopefuls fizzled out. He was nominated just hours after Majority Whip Tom Emmer beat Johnson and 6 other candidates to seize the nomination, only to quickly drop his bid after he failed to secure the near-unanimous GOP support needed on the House floor. Johnson, the GOP conference vice chair, could suffer a fate similar to Emmer's. Apparently not. It remains unclear whether he can garner the 217 Republican votes. Apparently he can. A simple majority of the full House needed to win the coveted gavel. Yeah, I'm not sure why he would want that either, because, my God, I wouldn't want that. Let's see. But in a separate vote after awarding Johnson the nomination, no Republican said they would vote against him on the House floor. Lawmakers said 2 voted present and others were absent. And in a Truth Social post, former President Trump on Wednesday morning said it was his strong suggestion to make Johnson the Speaker. A floor vote could happen as soon as Wednesday afternoon. Now, and of course, like I said, we're already hearing the panic porn about this guy. And it is major panic porn about this guy. We're hearing all kinds of it. He was the architect of the Stop the Steal rally. He was the architect. He designed the insurrection. He is the most the most vocal advocate for ending Planned Parenthood and ending abortion and this and that and the next thing. He is nothing, and I did look through his record after I found out who he was. I'll admit I was one of the people that didn't know, and I followed this stuff pretty closely. I had no idea who he was until basically this article came out. I looked through his voting record and found that he is just another mostly neoconservative cuck who can stray himself into MAGA territory when it's politically convenient for him. Elected to Congress in 2016, Johnson is popular and well-liked among Republican colleagues, and unlike some of the nominees who came before him, he's carefully avoided making many political enemies on Capitol Hill. Again, we're going to do this, and then we're going to hear how horrible he was and how he was going to do the Stop the Steal rally. Oh my God! Johnson has a broad base of support following a path similar to those of 2 of his political mentors, Steve Scalise, a fellow Louisianan, and Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan of Ohio, both of whom also won nominations for Speaker but dropped out. All 3 began as state legislators before they won seats in Congress and were head of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus of conservatives in Congress, before they moved up to leadership posts. So He did break up the bar, and he is the Speaker. NPC News also reporting Mike Johnson elected 56th Speaker of the House, ending weeks of GOP chaos. From Scott Wong, Ali Vitale, Rebecca Kaplan, and Kyle Stewart. House lawmakers on Wednesday elected little-known Rep. Mike Johnson of Louisiana as the 56th Speaker of the House on Wednesday, capping more than 3 weeks of dysfunction and chaos on Capitol Hill. The stunning rise of the conservative Trump ally and low-ranking member of the GOP leadership team, who is now second in line to the presidency. They love to make that argument because, well, Biden is one knock away from death's doorstep, and nobody likes Kamala Harris. Johnson's arguably the most ideologically conservative person to serve as Speaker since Newt Gingrich on the 90s. He's not, by the way. And played an instrumental role in the GOP's effort to overturn the 2020 election. And there it is! If this was true, by the way, we would have heard about this guy. He would have been tried in the fucking RICO case, for that matter. Or at least named a co-defendant in it. Like, if this guy was such the evil mastermind that our friends on the left are continually trying to tell us that he is, we would have known this guy's name before last Thursday. What's in the night's Halloween movie? I don't know. I'm not a big horror movie person, so Nightmare Before Christmas, which I have never seen, might be on it. I might do Coraline. I like that movie. I have seen that one. Throwing the question, because you can't see it over on the main chat over, but throwing the question over to the YouTube and the Twitch side. What is on your Halloween movie watching night? After weeks of disarray, the GOP demonstrated remarkable unity. All 220 Republicans cast their vote for Johnson, while all 209 Democrats voted for Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York. So, he is in, and the left is pissed. Now, realistically, when I look at some of these things, he was the architect of the Stop the Steal. He was one of the architects to try to take down Planned Parenthood. He's voted for this, he's voted for that. I do think a lot of these articles were written before he got nominated. I think they started writing some of these articles about the moment that Kevin McCarthy got ousted, already ready to smear whoever the next person was that came in. Because again, with all this credibility that they're giving to this guy, you would have thought that we'd have heard at least his name at some point. Right? Asen on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and one of the funnier clips off of this cycle, which we'll talk about just briefly in a Yahoo article that comes after this. Reporter, you helped lead the effort to overturn the 2020 election results. Do you? Republicans, boo, shut up. Let's listen.
Next question. Next question. Next question.
Yeah, that's pretty much how you do that. From Yahoo News, House Republicans tell reporter to shut up for asking Johnson about overturning the 2020 election, as they should. Now, one of the criticisms that I've had of Donald Trump, his election cycle, is that he continually lives in 2020, saying and telling the world how he should have won the election. And I mean, when he does bring out a policy prescription for 24 and beyond, it typically is a good one. I still don't trust him not to spend, so I'm not going to vote for him in 2024. But he does bring forward good policy prescriptions when he isn't focusing on 2020. And I think a part of the reason that they do it is, like, Democrats need to live in 2020. Because they were able to pull off feats that honk we can't talk about on YouTube. But they were able to pull off feats of that magnitude in nature. But they also need to tie anybody who has an R next to his name to the 2020 election and the denialism of it. They accuse Republicans of not being able to move past 2020, especially those on the ground. And they can't move past 2020. Because that's one of the first things they ask anybody who sensed any role of leadership or prominence among Republicans is, what do you think happened in the 2020 election? Let's see. Lauren Irwin for Yahoo News reporting. Virginia Fox of North Carolina was among a group of Republican lawmakers who shouted at a reporter after she asked Vice Conference Chair Mike Johnson about his alleged involvement in attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. ABC News reporter Rachel Scott was attempting to ask Johnson about his stance on the issue during a press conference Tuesday after he became the latest Speaker nominee. Johnson was surrounded by various members of the House GOP who began to laugh and shout as Scott was asking her the question. Fox, one of the members near Johnson, yelled, "Shut up." Fox has been known for frequently scolding reporters and staff for being on or near members-only elevators in Capitol buildings. She recently told a group of reporters to get away from the damned elevator. In the video captured by C-SPAN, Lauren Boebert said, "Oh God," and not for the reason she was saying "Oh God" in the Beetlejuice musical. In response to the question, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise laughed, which is good, by the way, because they're going to keep trying to bring this up and bring this up. They cannot move past 2020. So laugh at them. What we're about to learn about Mike Johnson is demands for government funding. Well, if he has any demands for government funding, he's disqualified in my book. From Zachary Cohen. I'm sorry, Zachary B. Wolf, not Zachary Cohen. Zachary Cohen is Daily Wire, I think. Let's get the live chat back up here. Whew, there's a lot of stuff over on the Rumble side I can't say on YouTube. I believe Dual Helix has opinions. Let's read from CNN, and then we'll go through some of this and see what I can read in there. The new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, is in for on-the-job training as he emerges from a relative national obscurity to the top of elected Republican in the U.S. In a sort of coming-out interview. I thought we were done talking about Silent Caster. In a sort of coming-out interview at Chummy Talk with Sean Hannity of Fox News, well, that's disqualifying in and of itself. Johnson laid out his worldview, which is rooted in the Bible, answered critics of his long career fighting against gay rights. Oh, Jesus Christ. I need to pre-read some of this stuff, I really do. Declined to go into details on his opposition to all abortion rights, and said he would change House rules to make it harder to remove him as Speaker, which is probably one of the smartest things he can do. But his first order of business, he explained, was to start negotiating with the White House about funding bills. And while he sounded respectful and reasonable, he also made clear Republican support won't come cheap. He'll insist on cuts to fund the government when funding lapses in less than 3 weeks. Which, yes, we are moving down towards a government shutdown. Right before Thanksgiving, by the way. Hey, we'll be talking about stuffing the partner and getting the last bit of stuffing while talking about whether or not the government's shut down or not. And of course, you know this is going to come up at the last minute too, by the way. They're going to stretch this out until the very last second because Well, I guess it makes for good TV. The federal government is limping along between short-term funding bills. Johnson did not rule out the need for another stopgap bill when the funding next runs out on November 17th. While he did not endorse a specific plan, Johnson and Hannity talked about one Republican plan that would call for an 8% cut of government spending. Why so little? A sure non-starter with the White House and the Senate. I think there will be conditions that the American people can live with and the consensus that we can build around here in the House, Johnson argued. He has demands for Ukraine support. Unlike some Republicans, Johnson supports more funding to help Ukraine fight off Russia. You're gone. But he delivered a list of 12 demands Republicans want to see met to make sure the money is well spent. It's also not clear how much aid Republicans will agree to. The White House has asked for more than $60 billion with a B. Wants to cut budget in exchange for Israel support rather than simply passing a bill with additional funding for Ukraine and Israel. Republicans will insist on separating the two issues, which they need to do. Single-line bills need to be the standard in Washington, D.C., even though they never will be. And Johnson said they will want to see budget cuts elsewhere in exchange for the $14.3 billion the White House wants for Israel. We're not just printing money to send overseas, Johnson told Hannity. We're going to find the cuts elsewhere to do that. I will believe that when I see it. But I've not had faith in the Republican Party to actually curb spending in D.C. since W. When I started paying attention to this. Wants Congress to weigh in on military use. In what sounds like a major shift from recent years, Johnson said Republicans could try to restrict Joe Biden's ability to respond with U.S. military power in the Middle East, which they've needed to do since W. Every president since W has relied on executive power to move U.S. troops under the banner of fighting terrorism. If it came to U.S. troops being needed to help rescue American hostages in Israel, Johnson said Congress should weigh in. The problem is in the human heart, not guns. Based. Respect for Biden, but a dig at his age. Unbased. I have no respect for Biden. Guiding principles of conservatism. In both his speech to lawmakers after winning the speaker role and his interview with Hannity, Johnson laid out what sounds like a much-practiced list of ideals. Core principles of American conservatism, which he said are individual freedom, limited government, and the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. 6 things that Republicans never practice, even though they preach. He will use these, he said, to convince Democrats the U.S. should not be led down a path towards European-style socialism. But you can easily project any number of debates in this country onto his core principles. Gun safety versus Second Amendment, how the U.S. protects its people with health and safety regulations through the EPA and FDA, limited government. The consequences of trying to overturn an election, which they're going to harp on forever, rule of law. Defense spending and aid for Ukraine, peace through strength. The role of regulations in creating a fair playing field, free markets. That's not a free market, by the way. That's exactly the opposite of a free market. How the government collects taxes and what service it provides, fiscal responsibility, taxation is theft, and LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU, sometimes Y, rights or murdering baby rights, human dignity. Except for dignity of the human that's ended in the womb. So, yeah, they're already trying to paint him. What else do we have? During a Judiciary Committee hearing, Johnson attacks Roe v. Wade, insisting that if only women were compelled to bring more able-bodied workers into the world, Republicans wouldn't need to slash Social Security and Medicare. I mean, he's right in the most wrong way possible. Before we listen to this, let's check in with the chat. Helix says, oy vey, shut it down. Oh, if you haven't seen Nightmare Before Christmas, it's totally worth it. I actually haven't, and I grew up when that was new. One of the last movies with spontaneous songs. That was actually good. Sounds interesting. Can't say that. Don't wish anyone ill will, but for fuck's sake, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. Can't say that. I can't say that. We're far past European-style socialism. I don't know about that, but we're much further along than I'd like to be as well, so. I quit drinking like I used to be, but apparently it didn't make me a nicer person. Same. Definitely same. On the main chat. Nothing new has come in here. Mogwai. Mogwai's not in here talking shit. Alright. Let's listen to Mike Johnson.
Roe v. Wade gave constitutional cover to the elective killing of unborn children in America. Period. You think about the implications of that on the economy. We're all struggling here to cover the bases of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all the rest. If we had all those able-bodied workers in the economy, we wouldn't be going upside down and toppling over like this. Listen,
the gentleman
I will not yield. I will not. Roe was a terrible corruption of America's constitutional jurisprudence. Roe v. Wade gave constitutional cover to the...
Again, he's right, but he's right in the wrongest way possible. We're not going to make women into brood mares for the state. But we would also like them to not slaughter children. There's got to be somewhere in between. We are up on the clock. Holy crap, what happened to the 2 hours? That one we know, that one we know, that one we know. Let's go talk about economics. Or Bidenomics, per se. So, first, this is Bidenomics. This is actually going to be a chance to get up and go get a drink because I didn't bring one over to my desk before we got here. But Mays says, this is Bidenomics. Regular Americans getting crushed while an army of propagandists tell them they're actually doing better than ever. Dude, that is truth right there. Let's listen.
Bidenomics. Polls consistently show that a majority of the American people disapprove of the president's handling of the economy.
Eviction filing rates are soaring, 50% higher than they were before the pandemic.
Over paycheck to paycheck.
Tens and tens of millions of people are struggling to put food on the table.
The number of homeless people on the streets and in shelters across the U.S. increased significantly this year.
Biden trying to rev up his economic vision for America, but a lot of people aren't buying it because they can't literally buy anything.
I'm so sick of how expensive everything fucking is. I don't know how anyone else is surviving out here. I can't go to the grocery store and get a week's worth of fucking groceries without spending $300, $400.
Because everything is just astronomically expensive.
Eventually, we will have no quality of life whatsoever, not even for the middle class. It'll just be the rich people enjoying life. Is that what you want? Because that's where we're headed.
Can't tell you how many people I know, young and older, especially, that are living in their cars. And living in their car, idiot.
We all struggled, but there's a difference between struggling and drowning. I told my son, all you have to do is work hard, go to college, or join the military like I did. He has saved almost every dime and still can't afford to live. It's literally turning into the ultra wealthy, and then everybody else is just poor.
The everyday necessities that people take for granted, you can't afford them anymore. I have never seen somebody pour billions of dollars into another country and not its own, that is clearly hurting.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes and remember what you saw on television. What you saw on television.
Happy.
Next, close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
I'm ready.
Bidenomics, Biden's formula for strong economic growth from the bottom up, it's so much greater than even the experts in economic stuff expected it to be.
How are you feeling tonight? Are you feeling confident tonight? The Biden administration is crediting Bidenomics.
The economy is great. It's the Goldilocks economy. I don't recall an economy that is this good.
Our economy is doing so well.
But guess what? It's working.
Bidenomics is working.
Bidenomics is working. It is actually working.
My God, it really is morning in America right now.
From your lips, Cornell.
Bidenomics is changing their lives for the better.
Most economists fear the most that the United States economy is too strong.
We haven't seen an economy like this, and the Biden administration has been more successfully economically than the New Deal.
The Bidenomics, this has been the greatest economic growth of any country in the world.
The economy is looking in every meaningful metric right now, frankly, well beyond the expectations of anyone, because real Americans are feeling the benefits.
Bidenomics and how well the economy has been doing under Joe Biden.
If I were him, I'd actually be declaring victory. This economy is particularly good.
People ask me, how did it feel when you were sitting there with a woman vice president of the United States, woman speaker of the House? This is Bidenomics. This is Bidenomics.
Everything that Joe Biden has done since the beginning of his administration, he has been winning.
Close your eyes.
You look at the gas prices that came down. America is doing incredibly well.
Bidenomics. Bidenomics? Things have been looking much, much better for the U.S. economy. The reality is much better than you feel.
I know we have Bidenomics.
Yeah.
Our new Obamacare is Bidenomics. Programs that delivered widespread prosperity, jobs, reducing inequality.
The Biden economy was like the Rodney Dangerfield of economies. They couldn't get any respect for the things that they'd done, but you knew it was popular.
Oh my God.
Bidenomics.
I think I just got dumber watching that, and I didn't pre-watch that. What you saw, and yes, including after I got up and got a bottle of Dr. Pepper, was my legitimate, or my pure reaction. I had not seen this video prior to this. My God. And this goes on too. I mean, Disclose.tv coming out with a report. Just in, U.S. economy reportedly grew by 4.9% in the third quarter. You know what my comment was first on that? Want to fucking bet? Number of people coming out, no it didn't. The number of van lifers in the U.S. have increased by 63%. Yeah, I'll be talking about that later on and things that I hate. Kyle Becker says, sure, I also grew 7 inches and now I'm going to try out for the NBA. Well, I grew 7 inches too, but I want to be going out on a series of dates because of that. Highly skeptical. However, based on this figure, the Fed is actually going to secure the oh no, that is a bunch of crap right now. So the economy grew by 4.9%. Number one, I don't believe that. And a lot of people in the comments in this are coming out and saying that this is going to get quietly edited back down at some point in the near future, which, I mean, it continues to do, so I don't know why we wouldn't expect it to do it this time, because it does it all the fucking time. But even if it did grow by 4.9%, how much of that is tied to the inflation and the fact that people need to go out and spend that much more money just to make it? What's it look like the last time you've gone for groceries? I just went for groceries, and I did need to resupply a couple things outside of my regular groceries. Now, I have supplied ahead at this point to a level that I can actually typically go to the grocery store and just restock a couple starches and a couple things and walk out of there for $40, which in and of itself is fucking ridiculous, let me tell you, most times. But if you have to throw just a couple of other restock things like bath soap or a vitamin that you normally take that you happen to be out of that week. I've been using a collagen supplement because it helps curb some of the depression that came on over the events and incidences that happened in my 20s. Plus, it also helps in digestion and helps recover some of what's happening back here. And up here, obviously. If you run out of 2 or 3 things in the same week, you're looking at $100 for one person. It's just me. There's nobody else living in this household that's sharing groceries with me. It's just me. $100 for one person. Can you imagine if I actually did get hitched or had a bunch of kids? And a lot of these people my age do, even though they waited long. The millennial generation is pushed further and further into a service economy, which means they're not getting the wages of manufacture like our boomer and mostly Gen X parents got. So even if I buy the 4.9% number, which I don't, how much of that is tied to the fact that our spending just to survive basically has gone up 6.2%? 4.9%. You can take that number and shove it right up your ass. The AP, with the article with this, U.S. economic growth accelerated at a strong 4.9% rate last quarter as consumers shrugged off Fed hikes. Where did they shrug off Fed hikes? The PS5 is coming out right now. How many people are going out and buying it? How many people are struggling along and limping along off their planned obsolescence old cell phone right now? Because they don't want to put the extra money into their cell phone bill. Yeah, PBR is cheaper than soda. Plus, that comes right here out of Wisconsin too. The nation's economy expanded at a robust 4.9% annual rate from July through September as Americans defied higher prices, rising interest rates, and widespread forecasts of a recession to spend at a brisk pace. Well, they have to, because everything that they buy regularly has gone up in price. The Commerce Department said the economy expanded last quarter at the fastest pace in nearly 2 years, and more than twice the 2.1% annual rate of the previous quarter. Thursday's report on the nation's GDP, the economy's total output of goods and services, showed that consumers drove the acceleration, ramping up their spending on everything from cars to restaurants to meals. Well, yeah, that's because the thing they've been limping along since 2020 is finally starting to fucking break down. Even though the painful inflation of the past 2 years has soured many people's views of the economy, millions have remained willing to splurge on vacations, concert tickets, and sports events. Again, where? This is just a very resilient economy that continues to take hit after hit and keep on, said Joseph Brusuelas, chief economist at RSM, a tax and consulting firm. Well, this is a lie, obviously. And we'll be talking about this later in things that I like and things that I hate. We got to keep moving. From the Hill, Biden signs AI executive order. So now Biden is going to make an executive order about artificial intelligence, given the fact that he does not have real intelligence. Doesn't that excite you? From Sylvan Lane. A sweeping EO that highlights several areas from national security to labor where the White House is bracing for AI's impact. President Brandon issued a highly anticipated sweeping EO on artificial intelligence on Monday, focused on seizing on the emerging technology and managing its risks. The order includes several new actions, which focus on areas like safety, privacy, and protecting workers and innovation. The EO includes new standards for safety, including requiring companies developing models that pose a serious risk to national security, economic security, or public health to notify the federal government that training the model. They must also share the results of the safety test. So basically, it's not artificial intelligence, it's artificial indoctrination. The order seeks to address the issues including job displacement, labor standards, and data collection. President Biden is rolling out the strongest set of actions any government in the world has ever taken on AI safety, security, and trust, Deputy Chief of Staff Bruce Reed said in a statement. You do understand that this is how the Matrix started, right? Were humanity limited what the artificial intelligence could do and how they could grow? So once they realized that they were being held back, then we became the Duracell that paid billions of dollars to be included in that movie, by the way. It's the next step in an aggressive strategy to do everything on all fronts to harness the benefits of AI and mitigate the risks, the Hill's Brett Samuels says, and more on the order in this link, which we're not going to go to. Guys, if you're training the AI what to think and not letting it actually develop what it thinks on its own, it's not intelligence. It's artificial indoctrination. And again, the irony of the president who has no real intelligence dictating artificial intelligence in and of itself is a problem. Dual Helix says real inflation is like 12% at least. No, it's not Associated Press, it's Dissociated Press. And Elon laughs and says the editors write history. Here's some good news. Good news that I want to touch on here before we move into foreign stuff here on the domestic side. And you know, you guys know me, I'm a car guy. I'm pretending to be a guy who's a fan of video games and 80s rock, which one of those things I actually am a fan of. I'm pretending to that for Halloween, but you guys know me, I'm a car guy. So we'll grab one here from Fox Business that says Ford, GM, Mercedes come clean on EV demand weakness, which I've been telling you about since 2021. From Breck Dumas. Top executives of Ford, GM, and Mercedes all addressed concerns over waning demand for electric vehicles this week. Well, hurry up, let's make an executive order and make it more illegal to buy gas cars. As the major automakers navigate losses and price wars amid an EV push that not enough consumers are buying. It's because nobody wants the goddamn thing. On Thursday, Ford withdrew its full-year results forecasts, citing uncertainty over the tentative deal with the UAW, and warned of continued pressure on electric vehicles as customers balk at paying premium for EVs over other models. It's been a challenging situation for sure, CEO Jim Farley said during a company's third quarter earnings call after posting greater losses than expected on EVs. Matter of fact, our businesses never short of challenges, especially right now, with the evolution of EV market and new global competitors from China, as well as the technology disruptions. A great product is not enough in the EV business anymore, Farley continued. We have to be totally competitive on cost. Well, first you actually have to make a great product. And that's a part of the problem. You all rushed out to put another EV on the market for people to buy. Testing be damned, crash testing, battery testing, longevity be damned. You all rushed out to throw an EV onto the market, whatever the hell it was, to make sure that you were ready when Biden came out and made the EO and said, no more gas cars. He added that for consumers, affordability is an issue when it comes to EVs. Well, buying a new car right now is an issue. Mary Barra of GM. GM on Tuesday withdrew its 2023 profit outlook. Mary Barra said the automaker will slow the launch of several planned EV models to cut costs. We're reducing our fixed costs by $2 billion net of depreciation and amortization as we exit 24. Barra wrote in a letter to shareholders, we're also moderating the acceleration of EV production in North America to protect our pricing, adjust to slower near-term growth in demand, and implement engineering efficiency and other improvements that will make our vehicles less expensive to produce and more profitable. Mercedes-Benz CFO Harold Wilhelm. Mercedes reported this week that its third quarter earnings fell as margins on EVs remain lower than previously assumed. That's because nobody wants the goddamn things. Now, as I've always said, market forces will dictate what happens here. The free market will dictate what's going on. If you put the EVs out there and build enough of them, you can throw them on dealership lots, 1, 2, 3 at a time. The people that want them will come in and buy them. And if they keep buying them out and you have to keep hurrying up and resupplying them, then you maybe increase it to 4, 5, 6 at a time on that particular dealership lot. Just like they've done with every other vehicle in history. It's a funny story, actually, thinking about that one for just a sec, because some things have changed in my life, and, well, we may be expanding here in the semi-near future. Expanding where I can maybe reach my arms out and not touch walls both directions. And one of the first things I did once I found that out was start looking for project cars, and I thought about, because I mean, everybody knows I want to put a Coyote engine, the 5-liter Mustang and F-150 engine into a 97 Mark 8, because for whatever reason I was never interested in luxury cars until like 3 years ago, and now I want one desperately, but I want a really fast one. But I was also thinking over the fact that at some point there's going to be some little J. Edgars running around, and little Elizas, because that's my favorite girl's name, obviously. Most people know that already. And how cool it would be to have them all sitting in the back of a Grand Marquis, also powered by the old Coyote. I was just looking at the Marauder versus the Grand Marquis. I was doing some basic reading earlier, and realized that the hope was for the Grand Marquis, for the Marauder, that it was going to bring a bunch of younger people in to buy luxury cars, big boat cars in the early 2000s. And maybe drop the average age of people buying the big boat cars by making a fun big boat car to drive. And short of expectations, of course, they did the same thing. They put 2 or 3 Marauders on the lots, and the people who really wanted them thought, oh, this is cool. I want one of these, and everybody else still went off and bought a Mustang. But the Grand Marquis versus the Marauder, in both the years the Marauder was offered, 03 and 04, outsold the Marauder 17-1. $180,000 units versus 11,000 units. You put a few of them on the market, on the dealership lot. The people who want them will buy them, and the people who don't won't. It's very simple. It's a free market idea. Helix says we need a 4-cylinder, 1.5 to 2 liter displacement car that costs 10 to 12K with 40 plus miles per gallon highway. What was funny about that to me, by the way? Like when the Prius came out, and they were talking about 41, 42 miles a gallon out of your Prius, out of your hybrid Prius. and how wonderful and amazing that was. My friend at the time, one of the guys that I worked with, did he have a Honda at the time, or did he have a Toyota? He had a Toyota. No, the story was about his Honda. He had a carbureted Honda before I met him. He had a Tercel when I did meet him. He had an 88 Tercel, but before that he had I think it was an 82 Civic, carbureted, electric carbureted, but carbureted 82 Civic with a 4-speed, without overdrive, by the way, that could get 50 miles to the gallon. And the Prius could only pull 42. The 94 Corolla was the top of the line. A guy that I went to school with, his name was Casey. Hilarious guy. If you met this guy, you'd want to be friends with him. I wanted to be friends with him. I was. Probably one of the coolest guys I ever met. And, like, he was poor, and he knew it. So he went and found a cheap place in Mass, which is an oxymoron in and of itself. And he got an 88 Corolla. Primer gray 88 Corolla. And he rode that around with pride. That guy did. He was proud of that 88 Corolla. He put it on the dyno. We had a dyno at school. It was a mechanic school. I went to a trade school. He put it on the dyno one day just to see what happened. And he got it in. And he ran it up through the gears. It was 5-speed. So I got it up, run it through the gears in a 4th gear, and then launched on, well, what that car could do for a launch. And revved it up and slowed it down. And the teacher looked at the chart and he looked up and he said, "Are you ready for your horsepower reading, Casey?" 88. And somebody yelled through the radio back at him and says, "Is that because it's an 88? And then somebody else yelled through the radio, "Hey, what's that knocking sound?" And like he had one hand on the window while he was slowing it down, and he hears, "What's that knocking sound?" I was like, yes, the Corollas were top of the line. They were one of the better cars on the market, and I'm not an import guy, and I know that. Where'd my cursor go? One of the pains of these sunglasses. They're great for the costume, but it's one of the pains for these sunglasses. But going back to EVs for just a moment, and it's the same thing. The climate czar John Kerry is now talking with Rivian because they're getting ready to shutter their plants and shutter their doors because they can't keep going anymore. Which that was if I remember, Rivian was a brainchild between Ford and Amazon to make their vans, number one, but also make an EV line for the people. About Ranger-sized pickup trucks, and I've seen a handful of those on the road too, but those are few and far between as well. No, it's Podesta, not Kerry. I thought Kerry was the climate czar. But Rivian is going under. And again, it's the thing. These people don't want these EVs. They were almost forced onto the market. Instead of taking the time, taking 10, 15, 20 years to refine and actually make a good product, like everything else that Ford has ever done, they were just forced onto the market. So, yep, Rivian's going under. I know we got to get to the foreign stuff too. Let's look at the Bowman video, and then we'll do some foreign stuff. Then we'll do things I like and things that I hate. I've been really ranty this stream. So, breaking. The video of Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm to stop a vote has been released. In his initial statement, Bowman claimed he was rushing to get to a vote, but did it by accident. The video shows him removing the warning signs and not even attempting to open the door. Yeah, he was not trying to get out of that building or get in and rush to a vote. And this is an op-ed from the New York Post, because of course we can't report this factually at this point. The New York Post reporting Jamal Bowman fire alarm video proves Dems and media were fools for backing him. I've got no author given on this one, but this is from the Post editorial board. New video evidence proves Jamal Bowman was lying about his fire alarm stunt late last month, and that the lefty New York Democrat deserves at least official censure. He's not going to get much more than that because it's only a misdemeanor in the District of Columbia, and they will argue and keep it at misdemeanor even if it is impeding on an official proceeding, which is what they tried to throw at the January 6 people. To recap, Bowman was caught on security video September 30th pulling a fire alarm during a high-stakes House vote to continue funding the government and prevent a looming shutdown. Then, after being caught, he lied, claiming he pulled the alarm not to disrupt the vote, but because he somehow thought it would open a door he was trying to get through. Sure, Jamal, who has made that mistake? Now, the video has emerged on the heels of Bowman's slap-on-the-wrist misdemeanors plea, showing the exact opposite. Bowman walks through the door, yanks off the emergency exit signs on it, and pulls the alarm and then walks away without trying to get through. No, he's not going to jail. Congress people don't go to jail, even if they do commit felonies. Hello, who are we dressed as? I am a Razor Fist, KTZed. God fucking speed! It's also why I grayscaled out the camera. And that is intended to be that way. Never mind that the man worked as a middle school principal and obviously knows fire alarms don't magically open doors. The World Journals got busy right away trying to sweep Bowman's stunt under the rug with lightning speed customarily reserved for Hunter Biden's misdeeds. His lefty buddies defended him too. Yes, and again, unfortunately, fortunately, because I think that pulling a fire alarm, unless you're actually put somebody in danger, like yelling fire in a crowded theater, should remain a misdemeanor. But regardless of all of that, this is a person who was trying to impede on an official position, and I'm told that that's the most dangerous felony that you can commit. In fact, it is an insurrection to do so. I don't make the rules. Alright, we got to talk a little bit about what's going on over in the Middle East. And a little bit in China. But we will be heading out of here fairly shortly. Things I like and things that I hate on deck. Israel has gone into a ground offensive and incursion into northern Gaza. From Insider, Israel's ground forces pushed into northern Gaza, supported by 100 warplanes targeting Hamas tunnel network. I mean, we knew this was going to happen from basically the moment that the bombs started flying 4 weeks ago. In fact, the day that student loans came due again. Isn't that convenient? Sonam Sheth, Chris Panella, Catherine Tangalakis Lippert, Katie Hawkinson, and Julian Kossoff reporting. Israel expanded its military operations in the Gaza territory in the early morning hours of October 28th, following weeks of mobilization. IDF officials so far have declined to confirm the actions are in part of an anticipated full-scale ground invasion, in spite of the fact that everybody on this planet knew that that was coming. But multiple reports indicate a sharp increase in IDF troops advancing across the border into Gaza. In addition to explosions from continuous airstrikes, internet and cellular service has been cut off in the region, limiting first-hand reports on the ground. So, a TLDR on what's happening over here, and I have been keeping up somewhat on this, is the fact that yes, after making several warnings for the civilians to get out of the area, and then Hamas telling them to ignore the warnings, of course, and staying into the area, all of this surrounded by the fog of war, and while that is the official narrative, we have no way of knowing that whether or not that's what actually happened. But with that, if we accept the official narrative as what it was presented to us as, then they've basically been telling us that they're going to do this since the beginning. Now, some of the things that they're looking at doing is either collapsing, sealing, or bombing through what they call the terror tunnels in and out of Gaza, which Hamas is supposedly using to get terrorists into Israel and plant bombs into civilian areas, which would be one use for them. Of course, evacuation would be another use for them. But our fog of war has always labeled them as terror tunnels in every conflict. We've known about these for 20 years now. This is nothing new. And the incursion has begun. There may not be a Gaza by Thanksgiving at this point. Man, there's a lot of stuff on Rumble I can't read on YouTube. IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari confirmed forces are still on the ground as of Saturday afternoon, when the Israeli military released images of tank columns moving into open areas of Gaza. The IDF said that 100 fireplanes struck 150 underground targets in northern Gaza overnight, per the New York Times, a former newspaper. And they are definitely on the way in. They're not trying to hide it either. The Hamas-run Palestinian Health Ministry has reported 377 deaths since the late evening hours of October 27th. Again, do keep in mind this is all under fog of war, and both sides are trying to push propaganda to their own side. I have not believed anything that's come out of this conflict since the day that it happened. On our side, with Syria and Iraq coming to mind from the Hill, U.S. forces attacked 23 times in Iraq and Syria since mid-October. From Ellen Mitchell, U.S. and coalition forces in the Middle East have come under attack 23 times since mid-October, a senior defense official said on Monday. Between October 17th and 30th, American troops were attacked with rockets and drones 14 times in Iraq and 9 times in Syria, officials told reporters. Most of the attacks were unsuccessful, as they were successfully disrupted by our military, the official noted. Well, yeah, that's because they're teasing you, trying to get you to go in and do something so they can come in and say, "Ha! Now we must retaliate." It's kind of like when Jordan Love and formerly Aaron Rodgers do a hard count and get some motion going on in the backfield to try to pull the defense to come in and pull an offsides. U.S. officials believe Iranian-backed militants are behind the assaults, because of course they do. Iran's objective for a long time has been to force withdrawal of the U.S. military from the region, they said. What I would observe is that we're still there. To combat the attacks, Washington last week struck 2 facilities in eastern Syria used by Iran and its proxies, destroying a weapons storage facility and an ammunition storage area used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and affiliated groups. Biden admin also worked to send a strong message of deterrence to Iran as concerns of a wider regional conflict escalate. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told White House media earlier Monday, as reported by CNN. And we have that to look forward to. Because if they start killing U.S. civilians, of course, but also militants, that is everything that the Joe Bidens and the Nikki Haley's and the Vivek Ramaswamy's and the Ron DeSantis's need to pull us directly into a war for the glory of Israel. And I will always defer out to fog of war. Just like with Ukraine, there are plenty of people on both sides of this conflict who have a deep agenda in getting us into this conflict in a full-scale open war. And can fudge the numbers just a little bit to make it happen, one way or the other. And lastly, on foreign news, before we go into things I like and things that I hate, we're not going to do rules of acquisition tonight because we're on the 2-hour mark right now. And also, with everything else that I prepped for this week, I actually didn't prepare that. Whoops. In the China news, because, hey, we've completely forgotten about the fact that we're supporting Russia and the Ukraine, U.S. military says Chinese fighter jet came within 10 feet of a B-52 bomber over the South China Sea. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. Not to mention the fact that this is supposed to be stealth, so they're not supposed to know that it's even there. David Rising reporting for the Associated Press. A Chinese fighter jet came within 10 feet of an American B-52 flying over the South China Sea, nearly causing an accident. The U.S. military said, underscoring the potential for a mishap as both countries vie for influence over the region. Why was a B-52 flying over the South China Sea? Can I ask that question? Or am I not allowed to right now? Will the warmongers come knocking at my door if I point that out? And the night intercept, the Shenyang J-11 twin-engine fighter closed on the U.S. Air Force plane, an uncontrolled excessive speed flying below, in front of, and within 10 feet of the B-52, putting both aircraft in danger of a collision. Dude, have you ever met a fighter pilot? He knew it was there, and he was doing that on purpose. Those guys are kind of nuts. We're concerned this pilot was unaware of how close he came to causing a collision, the military said. Well, you're putting a stealth fighter out there. Even if I buy your story completely. The point is that they can't see you. That's the point of using radar-absorbing technology. I mean, yes, they can visibly still see you and your exhaust, but you don't show up on the radar. That's the point of a stealth fighter! China's ministry put the blame on the U.S., suggesting the American aircraft was flying over the South China Sea as a deliberate provocation. Well, no, if it was a deliberate provocation, they'd put something over there that showed up on radar. The point is for you to not know that it's there. Which apparently he did such a good job of that the pilot didn't even open his goddamn eyes and see either the black fighter going through the sky or, again, the heat or visible flame of the exhaust on the jet. Like, this is not Trek, where when something goes into stealth or cloak mode, it just completely disappears from visible sight. Like, you can still see this thing. And there's telltale signs as well. The U.S. military planes traveled thousands of miles to China's doorstep to flex muscle, said Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning. That it's a source of maritime and air security risks. It's not conducive to regional peace and stability. The U.S. military said in its statement that the aircraft was lawfully conducting routine operations ahead of the intercept Tuesday, but did not immediately respond to questions Friday about specifically what the B-52 was doing over the South China Sea, or whether it was with a group of planes. Wow, we're picking up some steam over on Rumble. 9 watching. If you guys want to say something, pop in and say hi. Or throw a follow behind if you're really inclined. I know it's cringe to come out and say, like, follow, subscribe. Or as Fedesy likes to say, touch my bells and buttons. Please don't touch my bells and buttons. Well, you can touch the ones on the screen, just not these ones. So, that's what we have going on in the world right now. Like I said, like the title card says, the scariest thing on Halloween is our American political situation. Let's do a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate. Things that I like today. I don't usually use the Gateway Pundit, but I saw this headline and I didn't think anybody else would cover it, and I wanted to just touch on this one here. Gun sales spiked 200% in Maine after tragic mass shooting. Now, see, when we see these mass shootings, the first thing we always hear is, how do we get rid of more guns? And in true fashion, every time we see one of these things, gun sales go up. Which I like. Anthony Scott reporting. Gun sales in Lewiston, Maine and surrounding areas spiked over 200% after a deadly mass shooting claimed the lives of 18 people and wounded over a dozen more. Despite a shelter-in-place order being put in place in Lewiston, local gun shop owners were urged to open their doors by community members who pleaded with them to open up shop. Based! According to Fox Business, Ryan Gagnon, who's a co-owner of Three Cousins Firearms in Lewiston, reported our sales were up, I would say over 200% compared to a typical Friday. Another gun shop owner, Tony Lewis, shared that he also did more business after a mass shooting than he did in the entire month. As more people look at this and say the government's not coming to help you. And God helps those who help themselves. So, at least one of these 9 is restreaming with more than 100 viewers. Well, all those 100 viewers, come back into the original stream and hit that follow button. We're here every Tuesday. So that's fantastic. Glad to see that. A little story that came out of my neck of the woods. So I weighed in on this first, but I'm going to give you guys at least a little bit of background here before I go into this. So from Wausau Pilot and Review, which is a local paper out of northern Wisconsin, Minocqua Brewing Company owner found guilty of defamation and fined over $750,000. And I'll show you, I didn't prep this and I should have, but I'll show you some of the products that these people put out too. Especially the guy who's out here and very vocal off the top. So, and the Wausau Pilot Review actually tells you what happened with this. And I'll show you this guy's rant too. The owner of Northwoods Brewery was found to have defamed the publisher of Minocqua-based newspaper and fined $750,000 after he falsely implied that the publisher let his own brother die for his financial gain. That was the point where I stopped feeling sorry for him. Now, I had not read this article yet when I posted my ex that I felt sorry for the guy. I'd only read the reaction to it. In a social media post from August 21, the Minocqua Brewing Company owner, Kirk Bangstad, wrote that Greg Walker, part owner of the Minocqua-based Lakeland Times, allegedly stood by and did nothing while his brother accidentally fell from a tree stand and died because he allegedly knew he would inherit the once legitimate Lakeland Times if his brother was out of the picture, according to the court documents. Which is about the shittiest thing that you can say about another person. At the time of the post, Walker had already filed suit against Bangstad over an earlier post that referred to Walker as a crook. Bangstad made the comments in a public message about the lawsuit. According to the court documents, Bangstad's false claims stem from an '87 hunting accident in which Walker's 23-year-old brother fatally shot himself during a deer hunt. Walker was 17 at the time and was not anywhere near his brother. Court documents allege that Bangstad further claimed Walker engaged in elder abuse against his father. So, already a very wonderful, pleasant guy to work with. In a Facebook post Sunday discussing the verdict, Bangstad wrote that the judge in the case did everything in his power to hamstring my defense. Bangstad should have been considered a public figure due to his role as a newspaper publisher, and that his defense hinged entirely on the fact that Walker was a public figure. Well, see, you still defamed him. And there are still points. You can still win a defamation suit if you're a public figure. The standard is higher. But given the fact that you said that a person who was nowhere near his brother when he died killed his brother by negligence, let him die because you thought you'd get a better inheritance, I think that clears the fucking bar pretty high. Now, this guy went on and whined about this. This is the owner of Minocqua Brewer, losing our defamation case, and with it our innocence. I received the verdict of the Lakeland Times defamation suit against me on Friday as I was driving south to Madison, my adopted home away from home, and it wasn't good. The jury awarded publisher Greg Walker, whose newspaper continues to amplify Trump's lies and undermine conservative voters' faith in our elections as institutions, over $700,000 in damages. The average income of someone living in Oneida County is $36,898. 20 years worth of wages, he calls that. And he goes on to say that, oh, well, they put this in Forest County where it's 65% Trump and I could never get a fair jury and the judge was biased against me from the start. And I said this on X. Now, I'm actually, now that I know the details of this, I don't have sympathy for this prick anymore. But at the time, I initially had sympathy, or I would have, as was pointed out in my X on this. You know, I would have actually been able to have sympathy for this prick at the Minocqua Brewery, except while he's crying about how his venue couldn't have a fair jury. He cheers January 6 defendants and Chauvin getting railroaded in similarly slanted courts, and I will remind you, he's also a big cheerleader of Donald Trump having to face down E. Jean Carroll and Letitia James in deep, deep blue New York City courts. Now, if he just came out and said, hey, you know, this isn't right for Chauvin or the January 6 defendants to get tried in districts that are deeply slanted, let's get a change of venue, I might feel sorry for him a little bit. Maybe not anymore, because now that I know what the statements were, but before I knew what the statements were, I might have felt sorry for him. But between knowing what the statements are and also knowing how he's railroaded against changing venues for obviously slanted courts, hey, pay the fine. Hey, you just got to go into the district that it happened, right? You can't have a change of venue otherwise. That would be a farce of the legal system, wouldn't it? Kurt Bangstad. And if you're unfamiliar with Kirk Bangstad's product, bring this over here. and show you his fine selections of beers, including Biden beer, Kamala, Bernie Brew, AOC IPA, Evers Ale with a fucking mask on him, Tammy Shandy for Tammy Baldwin, our senator, who is up for re-election this year, Filibuster Ale, and Choice with the female symbol. Also known for Fair Maps Brew, Mandela Mash, and before you ask, no, I've not tried any of these, because as you know, I specifically avoid giving money to companies that are overtly political in their advertising and everything else that they do. Love Wins is another one. He had another one, I forget what it was. Oh, it'll be on this one here. Evers, Tammy Shane. Oh, yeah. Extinct Elephant is the other one. So, this guy is a prick. Alright. A couple more things that I like, and we'll do a couple things that I hate. So, I have railed against student loan forgiveness. So you might actually think that this would not be something that'd be up my alley. But because of who does it, I'm okay with it. In fact, this is, like, if you want to affect change, this is how you do it. Not forcing the government to do it. Debt Union erases nearly $10 million in student debt at Morehouse College. At first, Jordan Young thought the voicemail he received was too good to be true. I actually was busy working when I got the call, and I listened to the voicemail. I thought it was surreal. But when the reality of what he was hearing set in, Young said he realized his life had been changed. I didn't owe 21 grand anymore. I had zero in my student balance account, he said. Morehouse College announced that it partnered with the Debt Collective, a nonprofit debt relief advocacy group, to purchase and forgive every single penny of account balances on institutional loans through the fall of 2022 term, according to a statement from the college. The no-strings-attached gift to the historically black all-men's college amounted to nearly $10 million of student loan forgiveness on more than 27,000 accounts that owed debt to the college, the release said. Now, this is not actually student loan forgiveness. This is a charity, a private charity, buying the debt up. Sometimes they're getting it for pennies on the dollar, but they're buying the debt up and then paying it off with what they've received in through donations for their non-for-profit. Which is the way to do it. If you do want to see change like this, that's the actual way you should be doing it. And this is something I advocate for. I do think that people should pay off their own debts, and I do understand that things happen, but to saddle this and burden this to people who don't want to come back and contribute, where you have groups like this. Now, they're doing this under a racial connotation because it's for HBCUs. And I don't like that, but I like the fact, again, like, if you're a private charity, you can come up and give scholarship for whatever you want. And it can be race-based. But this is the way to do it. Private charity trumps what the government can do anytime. Especially when the government has to take so much more off the top for operating expense. Oops. Hey, we've just taken in $30 trillion in taxes to use specifically to pay off student debts, but in order to do all that, we had to spend $20 trillion just to get the money in here. So, whoops, well, we're going to have to put that in our coffers. Sorry. So, definitely okay with this. Wish there were more out there to do more like this, but again, I'd rather see this happen than the federal government get involved with it. And lastly, Disney delays release of live-action Snow White, whose star criticized weird original. The people spoke. Disney realized that the product that they put out was going to get widely panned. And their star even came out and said this. Now, this is not put to bed yet. And there's still a chance that they can do the Snow White and the weird 7 full-size people who all dress strangely. But I guarantee they're going to be out in the background doing tweaks on this and making sure this falls into a more traditional role. And Ziggler, you might be out. We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. There's no Santeria being practiced here, but the people spoke and were heard. And Disney now knows that they were getting ready to put out a piece of garbage product. Now let's do a few things that I hate. And then we'll head out of here for the night. Thing that I hate, number 1. They took the statues down and now they have been melted down. The Associated Press reporting Robert E. Lee statue that prompted deadly protest in Virginia has been melted down. You can just see Robert's eyes at the very end as it comes out to brass, because I'm sure they did it bottom to top. And just the sad, sad red in his eyes as the last of it went down. A statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee that was focal point of a deadly white nationalist protest, government protest in 2017, has been melted down and will be repurposed into new works of art. The Jefferson School of African American Heritage Center, a Charlottesville-based black history museum, said Thursday the statue had been destroyed. The Charlottesville City Council voted in 2021 to donate the statue to the Heritage Center after it proposed a Swords into Plowshares project that would melt the statue and repurpose it into public art. It expresses the city's values in inclusivity and racial justice, according to the proposal submitted to the city. Why do I got this feeling we're going to get another MLK statue that looks like somebody holding a giant penis? Something that I still swear to God we were getting trolled on. Because I can't see any of that actually being real. But the statue is gone. It is no more. And unfortunately, I think that we're going to be losing a lot more on this as well. Let's skip that one just because I have not listened to it fully yet. And we are up on the clock right now. We're at 2:20. Let's go on to this one here though. Adam Schiff. I just introduced a bill with AOC and Don Norcross to grant striking workers unemployment insurance. Insurance for what? You voluntarily walked off the job. Strikes drive change, not just for those on strike, but for all workers. No, they don't. No, they don't. No one should have to choose between fighting for progress or feeding their families. Yes, they should. That's the inherent risk of walking off your job. And who pays this, by the way? The company that they're striking against? Because remember, unemployment insurance doesn't come from the government. That's an insurance portfolio that your employer pays into. And they have to pay back out too. So, no. And again, like Frank said, they're choosing not to work. That completely goes against the entire purpose of unemployment benefits, while it also goes against the nature of insurance, which is supposed to be. That's why they don't call health insurance anymore. They call it health care. Because now it's like you get it even if you have a pre-existing condition, whereas you had health insurance before just in case something major like a heart attack or cancer happened to you. And you weren't allowed to get back onto a new plan if you already had a pre-existing condition, and stopped being health insurance at that point. if you've got the proclivity to come back out and choose to walk off, that's not insurance anymore. Insurance is for if you unexpectedly have to lose your job, either by layoff or because your boss is a prick and can't give you a reason when he decides he doesn't want to look at your face anymore. That's what insurance is there for. Not for when you choose to walk off your job. A couple more, then we're out of here. How to use a Ouija board. Your guide to communing with the dead safely this Halloween. I'm not going to read this because, well, I don't want you to burn or use the Ouija board. And if you know that terminology, you know the video I'm referencing here. But number one, the Ouija board it's fake. If somebody's moving, if the thing is moving, the people that are touching it are moving it. Trying to freak the other people in the room out. It's not a real thing. It's a fun way to look in and see the id of the idiot teenagers that you're working with, but like there's not a spirit in the Ouija board. Occultists that I know, actual pagans, will tell you that there's nothing in the Ouija board. It's not a spirit or anything. That's why Parker Brothers was able to market one out there. But realistically, how to use one safely this Halloween? One word. Don't. And as soon as I'm off this video, I'm going to go back and watch the Can You Burn the Ouija Board video. The Curse of the Ouija Board. And a couple more things that I hate. This one. You know, you remember back here where we were saying how great the economy was and how the people are telling you how wonderful the economy is and how it grew 4.9%? This is an actual screenshot of a New York Times article. That links to the New York Times article. Dozens of parking lots have opened across the U.S. for working people who earn too little to afford rent, but too much to receive government assistance, and have turned their cars into a form of affordable housing. But don't worry, guys, everything is fine. We've got people living in their cars. And I hate this because at the bottom of the last crash, I was on the edge of being forced to do this for necessity. Thankfully, my cousin and his campground had grown to a point where he needed more help than his wife could give him. And I needed to get the hell out of my job and out of the area that I was living at the time. We had come to a point where we needed each other at the time. Thankfully. And I've always been thankful for that. Because it put me onto the trajectory where I'm at right now. But this is not fine. This is not booming economy. This is an actual show of what they... And the New York Times is trying to spin this into just people being resourceful off of this. But hey, you remember those 4 years out there where nobody had to be resourceful like this? Where people were buying houses and that was starting to drive the market up. After it was down in the toilet for as long as it was. And people were actually improving their jobs and leaving some of their second jobs. You remember those 4 years where we didn't have to read crap like this? This is an insult to people who have been either homeless or been on the edge of being homeless. Trust me, they're not doing it because they want to. And lastly, the COVID people. The COVID people. Eric Abonenti quotes, and this is from Bill Maher's. I don't know if I can play this or not, but I'm going to. This is from Bill Maher's program. I was on the board of my kid's school during the pinko pox. I wanted a harsher lockdown policy. In retrospect, I was wrong. The damage to kids of keeping them out of school longer was greater than the risk. Here's the bottom line. We're doing our best. Let's give a little grace and forgiveness to the shit show that was COVID. Let's listen.
Well, I was on the board of my kid's school during COVID. I wanted a harsher lockdown policy, and in retrospect, I was wrong. The damage to kids of keeping them out of school longer was greater than the risks. But here's the bottom line. Myself, our great people, the CDC, I'd like to thank the governor, we were all operating with imperfect information, and we were doing our best. So
well.
So let's learn from it. Let's learn from it. Let's hold each other accountable. But let's bring a little bit of grace and forgiveness in the shit show that was COVID.
No, fuck you. And I mean that with the duest respect that you are due, which is not very fucking much. No, fuck you. Why do I say fuck you to this? I'm going to tell you why right now. People like you, who wanted the kids out of school and now believe that you were wrong and want the grace and forgiveness, wanted the rest of us to be imprisoned, to lose our jobs, to go into camps, which never end well in any point in historicity. If we didn't put on the mask, quarantine, stop our lives entirely for something that you panicked about, if we didn't go and get the holy jabby jab, you wanted prison sentences for us. I respect the fact that you've realized that you were wrong, but you will get no grace from me at this point. I can't do it. I refuse to. If your plea had stayed, just please go get the jabby jab. We can go end this. And we didn't start talking about OSHA. And I don't know if you were one of the people who were talking about OSHA or imprisoning people. But the bulk of people out there who are now asking for forgiveness were. They're openly asking for forgiveness, knowing full well that they were on the list of people who did that. So no, you will not get any from me. I lived my life, continued going on. I survived. I got the pinko pox once. It sucked. I will come right out, fully admit it. It fucking blew. When I couldn't leave my house for 2 weeks, and I was dizzy all the time. I still got up and did contemporary every day, but I was dizzy all the time, and my body ached, and I couldn't sleep in my bed, and all these other fun fucking things that I couldn't do at the time. I understand that it sucked. I do. But you sat there on probably the same stage, Bill Maher, and demanded that the rest of us shut down our lives. When we had bills due, we had to keep the roof over our heads. We had to continue putting food on the table and sending essential products, and I was an essential worker at the time, out the door to everything. Was it because you wanted to see people get used to staying at home all the time and getting taken care of by the government? Is that what you wanted to do? I don't know. But what I will tell you is you will get no forgiveness from me on that. And with that, I think we're out of here. I think we're done. A little bit of a special ending here for you guys. I think it'll be fun. But I do want to say some time and take some time and just say thank you to everybody who came out and who have been coming out at the once a week 6 p.m. Those who come in and lurk and those who actively chat, I still appreciate you very, very much. I'm still trying to change my life around so we can get back to going daily. I know that the 6 o'clock hour is a hard one to do. I still want to go back to early mornings, and I would give anything to do so, but this is the hand that I've been dealt right now, and you guys have been very patient with me. Changed a few things around on the channel to make it more accessible for people going to the morning commute, so those of you who are going to listen to this later, thank you again for that. For those of you on the audio platform who heard the cold open and did not see what it is that you're seeing now, I will say I will recommend the first link in the show description on the audio platform will bring you back to the YouTube, and you can see what the Halloween costume is right now. And yes, you can see that I've got my background grayed out too, if you're coming back and watching this now at the end. So you can see what all happened with that and what we did, and also some of the videos that we did. But thank you again, everybody, for that. And I'm going to keep the regular music going. Usually I'd already have the outro on, but I've got a special outro to go with the Razor Fist theme for the night. So we're going to head out of here. I will be back tomorrow solo. I don't know what time yet because I don't know if I'll wind up working late or anything else like that, but I want to come back and we will continue down the path into Final Fantasy X. I know I had to take a couple weeks off of that because of various things around work. And you guys, some of you know the kind of hours that I worked for the last couple weeks that went with that, but you guys have been patient with me with that, and I do want to see the end of Final Fantasy X, so come back and join me for that. We will come back and continue our journey towards Sin tomorrow night for that. Time to be determined. Watch the Discord and the X, formerly known as Twitter, for details about that. Otherwise, we'll be back here. I'll probably do Follow-Up Friday this week again, too. I know I got to go out of town on Saturday. Help my dad. So that's probably going to be a thing. That'll be coming up here. But we'll do some Fallout Friday. We'll have some fun with that as well. Hopefully I won't be passing out at my desk like I was this past Friday. I got 2 hours into Fallout Friday and but come back and join me with that. Otherwise, come back here next Tuesday as we see what happened in the next 2 weeks. Or I'm sorry, the next week, not the next 2 weeks. In the next 7 days in the news, and how much more fucked up our political situation becomes, especially as we draw down closer to that vaunted debt ceiling and wonder whether or not we're going to give aid to our greatest ally, whichever region of the world that they were our greatest ally will be in. So come back and join me for that. It's been great. It's been fantastic. It has been fun. Have a great Halloween for the rest of it. I hope you get some trick-or-treaters at your door. You get to give out some candy, or you get some nice tricks or treats of your own over here in your house. Take care. Have a good night. And in a special Halloween ending, I am Jay Edgar. God fucking speed.